Good morning. I'm Leonard Hamlin, Canon Missioner of the Washington National Cathedral. And on this Friday, August 2nd, I'm privileged to be able to meet you in this morning's prayer and devotion moment. I'm thankful on behalf of our dean as well as all of my colleagues here to share in this moment and to be able to connect with you, whether it's in the morning, whether you're hearing this and watching later in the evening, but at whatever portion of this day that we might be able to, of course, press our way and grow together in the work that God has given us to do. So won't you join me in a word of prayer on this wonderful morning. Almighty and everlasting God, we are ever so grateful for the blessing that you have given us. We are thankful for your presence with us and once again your love towards us. And so now we ask that you might draw us closer together with you and closer together with each other. And that as you cover us, keep us, that most of all you would fill us for all of those places that you are preparing to send us. So we ask this now in your wonderful name. Amen. On this morning, our gospel reading comes to us out of the Gospel of Matthew, the 13th chapter, the 47th through the 53rd verses. And in Matthew's gospel, we find these words. Once again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was let down into the lake and caught all kinds of fish. When it was full, the fishermen pulled it up onto the shore. Then they sat down and collected the good fish in baskets, but threw the bad fish away. This is how it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the blazing furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Have you understood all these things? Jesus asked. Yes, they replied. He said to them, therefore, every teacher of the law who has become a disciple in the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a house who brings out of his storeroom new treasures as well as old. When Jesus had finished these parables, he moved on from there. Amen. For those who are listening to this particular passage of Matthew, I would encourage you when you have time to go back and to take a good look at the entire 13th chapter. Be able to look at that as Jesus in this 13th chapter shares a series of parables, one right after the other, one right on the heels of another. When you have an opportunity and you spend time perhaps in your own personal devotion and reading, if you go to the 13th chapter, you'll find just within that chapter, Jesus shares the parable of the sower, the parable of the weeds, the parables of the mustard seed and the yeast. He even explains one of the parables, and then we come upon the parable of the net. One after the other, Jesus is teaching. One after the other, Jesus is talking to them about the kingdom. He's giving them the heavenly, of course, messages through these parables, using examples that may be familiar to them. And when he arrives at the conclusion of telling all of these parables, on this morning I would have you hear his words that ask them the question, have you understood all of these things? How quick they were to answer, yes. How quick they were to answer. I would have you pay attention to all of the words that Jesus was sharing, the parable of the net, being able to fish, the separation of the good fish from the bad fish, the angel's work versus our work, But what I would raise for you this morning is how quick sometimes we are to answer. I look at this particular reading this morning, and what I wrestle with is that as Jesus asked this question, there's no space between their quick reply of, yes, I understood. And what troubles me on this morning and I wrestle with is how quick sometimes I was in my own life to answer, I got it. I think I understand it all. Yet beyond this moment, we go on to look at the disciples struggling, the disciples understanding, the disciples sometimes not getting the lessons that they should get. Are we paying attention to what Jesus said this morning? Are we looking at all of his words? Are we really able to say, yes, we understand? In this moment, I can often remember my father so many times in growing up that I was following him from place to place. He was taking me to different things, and how many times he asked me, did I really understand? And if I'm honest on this morning, I really didn't, but I told him I did. I didn't understand the lessons that he was teaching me in the moment. I heard his words, but I didn't understand them fully. Yet over time, the understanding would grow. I read a story not too long ago, just in a story, an illustration about a young boy who it was time to go for his vaccinations. And in taking his vaccinations, his father took him to get his vaccinations. And as he was going, of course, in those days, many were, of course, lined up to get their vaccinations. And to see those in front of him struggling, yet as he looked at his father, he was wondering why his father was going to let him go through those things and suffer those things. And here, when it was finally his turn, the doctor was, of course, taking out the needle, and the thoughts that were running through the young boy's minds were, how could my father let me go through this? And then, when he received the needle and the vaccination, here, all he could do was get upset and wonder, didn't his father understand how much pain this was, how problematic this was? Yet in that moment, his father was preparing him and preparing his son for greater things. Moments yet to come, the challenges, all of the forces that would be working, trying to steal his health, his strength. And yet, while he thought he understood, when he went to tell the story to his friends, he told the story in a way that here he went for the vaccination. He talked about the pain. He talked about his father not doing anything to stop it or to keep him from experiencing all of that pain. Not realizing the way he was telling the story, the way he was sharing the story, the way he talked about his father. And many times we're guilty just like that. That even as Jesus is preparing us, and his words prepare us for the moments yet to come, life, strength, and all that is ahead of us, we've got to be careful how we tell the story. His regard for us. Sometimes we think he doesn't show up at the time that we've called him, or the way that he's treated us, or the things that he's allowed into our lives. Yet in this, there are moments in life when he is preparing us for the moments yet to come. Here, as Jesus reminds his disciples and told them all of these parables, he was preparing them. And on this day, before we're too quick to say we understand, let us reflect upon what we are called to do, that in all our getting, get understanding. Amen. I invite you to pray that prayer that Jesus prays with his disciples, and that on every occasion we take a moment to pray, that we might be mindful of not just ourselves, but of all that we've been called to do, and the company and the community in which we are privileged to do it. Won't you pray that Lord's Prayer with me? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. On this day, may the Lord bless you. May the Lord protect you. May the Lord smile on you, and may the Lord be gracious unto you. May the Lord show you his favor, and as always, may the Lord bless you with his peace. Amen.